Well, hey there, sweet peas. Welcome back to Friendless. I'm your host, James Avramenko. And this week, we are celebrating Independent Bookstore Day. To mark the occasion, we are doing something very special, a double feature. 2 conversations, both recorded live at the Book Warehouse with 2 people who think very seriously about what bookstores do for a community. First, I speak with Minister Christine Boyle, who is the BC Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs. But we are not talking politics today. We're talking about why she feels her nervous system settle the moment she walks into a bookstore, what her 11-year-old has figured out about how to manipulate her at the checkout counter, and a book that her book club has still not forgiven her for recommending. I then got to chat with Cathy Jesson, the owner of Black Bond Books, who started working with her mother in the family business 6 decades ago, who stepped in to save Book Warehouse when it was days away from closing in 2012, and who now runs the whole thing alongside her daughter. 3 generations of booksellers, one very real answer to what it looks like to keep showing up for a community over a lifetime. So it's now time to lean back, get comfy, set your volume at a reasonable level, and enjoy this celebration of Independent Bookstore Day here on Friendless.
All right. So I'm not sure. Minister Christine Boyle. I'm not sure. Is there a proper title to address you with? Or?
Maybe, I mean, Minister.
Minister? Okay.
Yeah, but no, please call me Christine.
Okay.
Yeah, unless you're mad at me, in which case.
Don't call you anything at all.
full-
Yeah, just don't call me.
Yeah. No, Christine, and so happy to be here with you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate
yeah.
it. So right off the bat, being in a bookstore, what are you reading right now?
So I will say, coming in here, I was worried I would forget every name.
It happens to me every time.
So you can help me in this quiz. I have the Canadian author from Winnipeg, Mennonite author.
Miriam Taves.
Yes, here we go. I just started reading Miriam Taves' new book about writing.
Yes. Okay.
Which I'm really enjoying. I mostly these days read fiction
Mhm.
because in my work life I do so much reading
Nonfiction.
of nonfiction, but usually as a human, I like a broad mix of
Love it.
books. But yeah, lots of novels by women lately
Love
is
it.
what I
Kind of
want in that time, kind of from work until in bed before falling asleep.
Have you read A Heated Rivalry yet?
I haven't read the books. I watched the shows like more than one time.
Speaking of kind of, repeats, what's one book that you really consistently reread or just kind of keep coming back to?
Oh, the book I think about often and recommend to people all the time is Ministry for the Future.
Oh, yeah.
As somebody who thinks about and worries about climate all of the time, I found it both fascinating and oddly hopeful.
Mhm.
I will tell you, so I'm in a book club. I recommended it to my book club. It was the last time that my book club accepted one of my recommendations. My book club was like, that book was so depressing,
Yeah.
which I think was maybe a reflection on our starting points of depression around the climate crisis.
Sure.
But I found it super compelling and still think about the ideas that it brought up.
Over the years, is there a book that has kind of continued to really influence your career or anything at all? Like, is there a book that you really feel kind of influenced you throughout your life?
I don't think there's one book.
Sure.
I think reading generally always influences me, both, in terms of I read a pretty broad array, not right now, but of nonfiction.
Yeah.
And I like getting to learn from somebody who's delved deep into a topic.
Totally.
So I saw John Valiant's Fire Weather over here as an example, like incredible story and powerfully written, I thought. I loved that. But I also I love a novel because I like narrative and the human experience. I like reading about people's friendships and their inner lives. And I think it helps me get out of my own self.
Totally.
Because it's valuable to be learning about other people's lives and stories to sort of shape how I understand the world, particularly, and we're not going to go into politics, but as a public policy maker,
Yes.
a decision maker, I talk to a lot of people in my regular life to inform what I'm thinking about, but I also appreciate getting to read about stories and lives that are far beyond my own.
And last question, thinking of the ideas of community and, the sort of the state of bookstores, what is something that you think we can do to help support local bookstores versus the sort of encroaching, the Amazons of the world?
Yeah. I love getting to come in person. I mean, I'm also a huge public library nerd.
Yes.
I love the public library system. I'm the Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs. Public libraries fit within that.
Gotcha.
And so anytime I go to a new community, I want to visit their library.
Yes.
And I feel the same about a real physical bookstore. There's books that people recommend, and my book club keeps me busy with recommendations. But to walk into a place like this and see 100 things that I could dive into and like the visuals of it, and to know local booksellers and get their recommendations, and nothing beats that for me. I feel my nervous system relax a little when I walk into a physical bookstore. Somehow also I get
way overstimulated.
Very excited, and I leave with more books than I could possibly read. But there's a physical and relational thing there that I think can't be experienced by online ordering.
That's sort of the loss of friction, this is a bookstore is like good friction.
And I love getting to support a local business and knowing, all the studies about those dollars staying locally in the community and supporting local jobs. That all means a lot to me. So my son is 11, also a big reader, and he knows this is a major weakness for me. So he plays me so hard and effectively anytime he can get me into a bookstore. And then I'm like, the deal is before we walk in the door, 1 book, and we leave with 6, because I feel great about it. Because I feel great about supporting the local bookstore. I love that he loves books. I mean, it's a bottomless pit of joy.
There's really there's no bad dollar spent on a book.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, Mr. Boyle, thank you so much. I really appreciate this.
Yeah, delighted to be here and glad to get to have this conversation.
Awesome. Thank you. So this episode is going to be coming out around, the Independent Bookstore Day and celebration around that. So that also links into Blackballing Books turned 60 in 2023. And you yourself, you've been a part of the company for over 5 decades. When you look back to, Brandon, Manitoba in the 60s, does it feel kind of like a straight line to where you are now, or more like kind of like a series of happy or other emotional accidents?
Hills and valleys. And coming to the coast from Brandon was the best thing ever.
Sure.
To join my mother, who had opened her first store in White Rock. It took me 5 years to talk my husband at the time into coming to the coast.
Why was he dragging his feet?
No, I don't know. He was afraid of the unknown, I guess.
Sure, yeah.
But I was all just, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's get there.
Yeah.
And when we got here, then he said, why did we wait so long? Because the opportunities were so incredible at that time. Within a short time, we opened our store in Langley, and that was something, basically ran it by myself.
Right.
Just doing everything.
Yeah.
And my mom was doing her store, and the stock would go into her store, and then I would transport. And I would see how many boxes I could get on a shopping buggy to put them into the store.
Yeah. To kind of have as few trips as possible, kind of thing.
Yes, yes, because I was the only one there.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Anyway, it was interesting times.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had people volunteer to work in the store.
Mm-hmm.
And after a time, I said, "Okay, I'll pay you as soon as I can afford to pay you."
Yeah.
And they became longtime people.
Kind of almost
working
the family.
With me.
Yeah.
And it all becomes, even today, we feel sort of like a family. And I feel very blessed by that.
Yeah. Well, and that, even the name itself is a family story, right?
Yeah, my 2 great-grandmothers. Yeah. Delia Black and Catherine Blonde.
Do you feel that history brings sort of a weight or more of like an anchor for the sort of trajectory of the stores?
I would say it's an anchor.
Yeah.
an anchor. Even from people who remember our Black Bond store in Brandon, Manitoba.
Mm-hmm.
And it ceased to exist soon after I left. So it's a business that's harder than it looks.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
And a lot of people go, oh, I like to read, so I think I'll open a bookstore. You know?
That's been my back of the mind dream all my life. And I've always known that's a pipe dream.
I mean, a person should go and work in a bookstore then.
That's just it.
Because
exactly.
It's a business. And we all love the books. And, that was part of the reason why Mother got into it, because she loved the books. Yeah. And also that community felt that they needed a bookstore in Brandon, Manitoba, when there wasn't. And it was, even the same when I came to the coast, the Langley didn't have a bookstore. And I was teased very much that I was going to open a bookstore in Langley, because they said, people don't read out there.
Right. Yeah.
They're like, it's horsey setness. And
yeah.
I said, I think you're wrong. And we did prove them wrong.
Yeah.
And it was a very successful store.
I love that. And you got to imagine too that it's not that people don't read, it's that they don't have access to a bookstore.
No, they did.
Right?
They did. Yeah. And then we did the same thing in Maple Ridge. And that still, to this day, I think it's probably 35 years old.
And still going strong.
Yeah. Still going strong. Very strong. And so community grounded. It's really something.
I feel like that's very much the spirit of all the stores kind of under the umbrella. They're not just one of the bookstores on the street or something. There's a very different kind of energy when you come into a, whether it's a Black Bond or a book warehouse or wherever it might be. It's everybody brings a different energy than most bookstores. You mentioned obviously your mother started this. You're now co-working with your daughter. What does it mean to you that this is a genuinely a multi-generational story, that books have kind of been the thread that has ran through your family's story for so long?
I guess that goes back to my mother, and then when my brother and my sister, and so the four of us were partners for many, many years until my mother retired. Then my brother went to Kelowna and bought his store at Mosaic Books in Kelowna, and where that again is another multi-generational thing. His daughter is the guiding force of Mosaic Books in Kelowna. And my sister went off sailing the seas, and I just stayed with it. I loved this business. I loved my customers. I loved my staff. I still see people from 30, 40 years ago who worked with us. And many of them say that was my best job ever. So
building on sort of the community outreach and the community building, you stepped in and you saved the book warehouse in 2012. And I got to say, as just as a personal note, I'm very grateful for that, because these were this location and the location on Broadway have always been my favorite stores. And I remember when it was closing, I was really sad,
It was down to the wire.
Yeah.
It really was the book warehouse on Broadway. And this so much passion by the staff there. Yeah. And I was amazed that even though they knew that they weren't going to probably have a job anymore, they still stayed with Charmin and the book warehouse. And, he's again another very strong person who loves his team, loves his people, and he still pops into the store on Broadway just to say how proud he is of Caitlin, because Caitlin was the manager.
Right.
She stepped in from Ladner, from our location there.
I think an element, for me is, personally as a reader, I know what I would have kind of lost if they had closed down, and I'm curious, from a sort of, not only from your perspective personally, but just sort of from the broader, almost Vancouver reading, mosaic. What do you think would have been lost if that were to have gone through?
I think there was a lot that was lost already because he closed the one on Davie.
That's right.
And he closed the one on West 4th. It came down to the crunch of the last big one. I think there was a real outreach. And I can't believe the response we got when we said, we're going to do this.
Oh, the relief. And it was a
And
fast turnaround,
it was
too.
fast.
It was 5 days you were closed down or something?
5
and
or
then,
6 days.
Yeah.
And there wasn't much stock, so we were doing what we could.
To get it filled back up,
Getting the floors done, getting the shelves done,
Yeah.
and pulling the team together.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah. And I remember walking along Davie Street and went into the Davie location that was closing. And there was Alissa, who was a long-term book warehouse person. She didn't know who I was when I went into the store. And her passion still for the business was really something. So I said to Caitlin, we want this person.
Yeah. Is she still around?
She's still around.
And that's amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
I mean, she's a real driving force in the Broadway book warehouse.
Okay, gotcha.
And Darlene, another wonderful person from that Davie Street location.
Reading is often kind of framed as this very solitary, kind of private act, but a bookstore is very much the opposite. And
Exactly.
and I'm curious, how do you find yourself kind of holding both those elements at the same time?
Getting to know your customers is the key for the team in each location.
Yeah.
You know the customers that come in and
What they're gonna want,
what they're going to want. And you know the other ones that just don't want you to pay.
Yeah.
Don't go near that person. They come in here for a specific purpose and they want to find their book or their discovery here, but they don't need your help.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's
you
just
have
learning
to,
that.
you get to know your customers. Sometimes I'll go into a store and just being there, and I love interacting with the customers.
Totally.
And they'll say, "Don't go near that person, Cathy. Don't go near that person."
Because they already know that.
So it's kind of fun.
Something that we talk often about on Friendless on the show is this idea of how difficult at times it can be to sort of, as an adult, make new connections and make friends or all these kinds of things. And I really feel like a bookstore sometimes can be one of those kind of like ace in the hole kind of things that not everyone necessarily thinks of. Do you see bookstores as kind of one of those, sometimes they call them third spaces, things like that. Yeah. Do you see them as one of the few remaining spaces like that for kind of a natural connection to build out of for strangers?
I think that's a very, very smart depiction of who we are. And I think in this time especially, that's why there's been such a growth of bookstores. Like we were probably 8 or 10 years ago, we were being written off.
Right. Yeah.
There's
Kindle's here.
There's no future. Right. As times got tougher and all sorts of things thrown at all of us. I think it is. It feels like a safe spot.
It's an interesting thing too to think about how it's something I've been thinking a lot about lately in conversations around kind of technology and things like that, where during, lockdown, during COVID, the sort of tech companies were saying, go into virtual reality and do all these things, and nobody wanted them. What people reverted to was reading physical books and, baking and gardening and all the like tactile, real human things, and not all of those practices have continued since, we've come back.
Baking has fallen off a bit.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. But at least, it does feel like the book element has kind of stayed on a little bit, right? Yeah, that's good.
It has totally stayed on. The fact that digital reading is, I think, runs about 14% in Canada. So it's very, and again, that was another thing that we were all in the business setting our hair on fire about.
Of course.
That, is everybody just going to read on their device and we're not going to be here anymore? No,
But it's a totally different experience is the thing. It's not the same at all when you hold whether it's on your phone or the Kindle or something versus a book. It's the words might be the same, but it's not the same experience,
No, so. It just, it hasn't, there's people that do both, read both. And if they're on holiday or whatever.
Exactly.
It's an easier way.
Yeah. That's me. Because I'll be, that's exactly what I do. Because if I'm traveling, I'm like, well, I should bring this book. But what if I'm going to want to read something different? But I should probably finish this one, So by then my backpack has 6 books in it, right? So I do, I do, put them on my phone or something like that, right? But it doesn't
feel the
it
same.
doesn't feel it because of that. I then end up not reading very much because I don't want to.
No,
Right? Right? Yeah.
It becomes deterrent to read.
Speaking of, do you have a favorite story of a book kind of becoming a bridge? When we're talking about building connections and things like that through the story. Can you think of, or has it ever happened where a book has kind of become a bit of a connection between people, whether it's strangers, friends, even coworkers, whatever it might be?
Probably just kind of anonymous sort of interaction with people that say, I came into the store.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't read in years.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to put that book in their hand, and they said, okay, I'm going to give that a try.
Mm-hmm.
And then seeing them come back and become a reader again.
Yeah.
I've had that happen numerous times.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really important. And also dealing with parents and with kids that are struggling and being able to bridge that gap.
Right. And get them,
reading.
show them that there's something there for them.
Something
right.
there.
Yeah.
And reassuring parents that, even though their child is just reading graphic novels or whatever they're reading, they're reading.
That's just
I had to have that discussion with my son, with his 9-year-old.
Because too many comic books, or is that the?
Well, just graphic novels.
Yeah.
He goes, "That's not a real book, Mom." And
of course it is.
Of course it is.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Does it have pages and words on it? Like, come on, grow up.
I know. Well, he just was trying to get him to read chapter books.
Totally.
I'm going like,
It'll get
if
there.
he gets to love books, he'll grow.
That's just it. It's with anything, often, and a refrain. This show by no means coined it, but it's a very common thing of, it's the idea of meeting people where they are, right? And that's another example of that, of let him come to it. That's not where he is right now. So he'll enjoy it more if he decides to come to it on his own, right?
It's like forcing kids to read what they don't want to read. It becomes painful instead of something that should be a lot of fun.
So this is a digression. But you sparked my mind. It's something I've been talking about a lot lately with some of my teacher friends who,
oh, good.
The idea of the sort of the structure of the English class is kind of counterintuitive to how we would naturally encourage people to read, because, we make, 30 kids sit down, read the same book, and it's this very uniform experience for what should be a very personal, kind of almost intimate experience of, picking a book for yourself and deciding when to read it and how to read it. And so we've been, just spitballing, like, how could an English class actually work so that you don't have so many people who years later say, oh, I hate Shakespeare because they made me read Hamlet in grade 12 and it was the worst, or, all those kinds of things, right? By no means do I have any answer, but I can't help but feel like if that's the first experience so many people have with literature, then of course they're going to resent it or struggle with it,
Yeah. It could almost be like a 30-person book club,
exactly,
where everybody votes on what they want to read.
Exactly.
And see how that goes.
They would then pick material that they want to be engaging with, and that's actually talking to them and is actually important to them.
Passionate part of, okay, I want to share.
And that's the other part of it, exactly.
And perhaps maybe the other kids would pick up your
exactly the idea of
and it coming from one of their peers.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, there's some fun ideas that can happen.
I think that's brilliant. That's exactly where we all go with it. But how do you then unpack how many decades of curriculum and all that?
Yeah,
right?
but you can add a wrinkle to it in order to achieve your goal of, what people in university classes are saying, that the kids come in and they're not reading.
That's exactly it.
And that's like the core. The key to the kingdom, actually.
Well, that's exactly it, and it's all If you can, we were talking about with when Susan Nielsen was on the show recently, and we were talking about how she has so many young readers, and if you get someone young as a reader, you kind of have them for life, whether they're always following you or not, they'll always come back. For me, I have authors I haven't read since I was a kid, but I still am so fond of them, and also I come back to other books that kind of remind me of them in a way, you
Yeah.
know? And so it's
Yeah.
we're doing a disservice, I think, to potential readers,
Yeah, I think
you
we
know?
are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we're talking because of Independent Bookstore Day, you know, which is
Mhm.
huge, the celebration,
It is
you know,
a
right? And it
And
also
it's all over. I mean, it's throughout North America.
and it
It's,
becomes a kind of a love letter in a
Yeah.
way, right? But who do you see that letter kind of being written to in this celebration?
are probably core base
Mm.
customers,
Mm-hmm.
and wanting to thank them so much
Mm.
for being with us through every part of our where we are today.
It's funny hearing that because my instinct goes to thanking the bookstore owners, you know, and the managers. It shows you humility here that you went to the customer first, you know.
Well, I know that our booksellers
Mhm.
have so much fun with it, and their enthusiasm for the day and brainstorming and ways that they can give back to their customers.
Mhm. Do you see a how do I put it? This is kind of a top of mind question, but do you see a differentiation between the sort of the sellers and the buyers in a certain light, you know, in the sense that we're sort of all readers, you know?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
The passion for reading.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
None of us in this business are in it to get to be wildly wealthy.
Right, yeah.
It's a tough business.
Yeah.
And we're in it because we love what we do,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just it.
A couple questions just kind of for you. What's a book that you have sold so many times that you could kind of recite the back cover in your sleep? Like, is there one that really sticks out? And if there is, why do you think that's the book that keeps finding new people?
Oh, probably over the last it changes for me from time to time, but probably over the last 3 years it would be The Women.
Oh, okay.
Just a powerful book.
Building on that a little bit, is there a, you know, I know it changes, but I'm curious, is there a genre or kind of a kind of book that you personally really love that you think might surprise people?
Oh, I'm just voracious mystery reader.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but then when I was away just lately, I read Project Hail Mary.
Oh yeah. What'd you think?
I loved it.
Yeah.
Totally out of character for me.
Oh really?
Because
Okay.
I'm not a sci-fi person.
Gotcha. Okay.
Although one of my all-time favorite books is Stranger in a Strange Land.
Oh yeah. Okay. I feel like that's a book that comes back around every few years or so,
Yeah.
right? You know, people kind of rediscover those classics of, because something like a Project Hail Mary will come out, and then people try to find out kind of what's its lineage, where's it coming from, right? Do you have kind of a memorable moment, you know, thinking of just sort of your experience within a bookstore, do you have a memorable moment or something that you witnessed of, you know, someone finding the exact right book at the exact right time in their life?
You know, it's just more almost you know, anytime I'm in a store, it's like it's like a day-to-day thing.
Totally.
And I'll go home after, because a lot of the time these days I'm spent in my office.
Of course.
And my happy moments are when I'm in the store.
Of course, yeah.
Because that's where the magic happens.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen in my office.
Yeah.
Not for the most part.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
But so when I'm in the store, if I can have that magic moment with the customer, then I can go home and share that with my partner and say, wow, I had the best.
Yeah.
And it was just a simple thing.
Well, and that's, I think, you know, when I think about the question, I think I worded it in a way that, because you're right, it's not a magic bullet moment that happens every time, you know?
Thankfully, it happens so much.
I mean, it happens to me practically every time I go to a bookstore, you know? I'm like, that was what I needed today, you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
So Caitlin is now your partner in this.
Before that, it was my ex-husband.
Gotcha.
And I would consider him my best friend. So we were partners for, oh gosh, in the business, probably 15 or 20 years.
Gotcha.
You know, and he did all the parts that I hated to do.
The
accounting, when somebody wants to open a bookstore,
Yeah.
they forget about all that stuff.
Yep.
And Caitlin's now taking on that role somewhat.
I love that.
But and doing a good job of it, but missing this part of it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
she ran the book warehouse on Broadway for 10 years or something like
Gotcha.
that, and just an incredible bookseller.
Yeah.
And the connection she would make with customers was just was over the top.
Yeah.
And the team she built was
was
super
yeah.
team.
Yeah.
And then Debbie comes on here.
Yeah.
And I mean, the magic is just,
Building on the sort of the idea of a legacy in a way. What does it feel like to be sort of handing something forward rather than outright building it or sort of starting over?
I'm feeling very confident
Mm-hmm.
about the team we have.
Mm-hmm.
There's opportunities out there.
Absolutely.
Perhaps even not,
Hmm.
but there's room for other stores to come on and be part of this wonderful community.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not bored of it yet,
Right.
even though people say, "Aren't you retired yet?" And I'm going like,
Why?
you know what? I kind of just do what I want when I want to do.
Well, and that speaks to something too. I really appreciate you saying that it's not like we have to have a stranglehold on it. And it's something that I think more people need a reminder of, especially when it comes to, art of any kind. It's not a zero-sum game.
No.
It's not, there's an infinite space for all the art you want, and
Yes.
there's always room for more of it, so it's I do
Look
wish
at-
more people would jump in, right?
Yeah, look at streets in Europe
Mhm.
where there's,
Just
this is-
lined with
this is
bookstores.
this bookshop
Exactly.
street or whatever.
Yeah.
But no, there's definitely room to grow.
Well, it's one of the magic parts of Maine is that each bookstore down the road, you go there kind of for a different thing. No, it's not a one-to-one. These are in competition. It's like, well, I'm looking for this, so I'm
No,
going to go
it's-
here, right?
No, it's a very, especially on the, apparently it's a little bit different in Toronto. There's a little more of competition type of
Toronto,
but,
but
but in Vancouver, there's definitely a camaraderie between booksellers. And we all want each other to do well.
For someone, this is my last kind of planned question here. For someone who's never really paid attention to Independent Bookstore Day, what do you want them to feel when they are, walking out of, Black Bond or Book Warehouse or whatever on that day?
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that.
And feeling that this, any of our locations are an important part of their community. I mean, we do our best for, doing what we can to help. We're doing a donation of 1,000 books to a school that needs help.
Yeah.
It's all put together. So it's sort of a paying it forward.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really important.
That's
Yeah. So it's somewhere in this main neighborhood.
Gotcha.
So it's good.
Okay. Well, I'll get the name. I'll throw it in the, yeah.
Debbie came up with that. That's
Gotcha.
great.
Well, thank you so much, Cathy. I guess last question, what's your favorite book right now?
I would say Project Hail Mary.
Okay. That's
And
the one to
and
plug.
it caught me by surprise.
Yeah. That's the best kind when you just
Yeah.
kind of get locked into something that you were not
Mhm.
expecting. Yeah.
No, it's banquet all the time.
Yeah. Right.
My TBR list is it's
It's painful.
painful.
Yeah.
And then I come to see Debbie.
Yeah.
And then it gets
She
worse.
goes, here's
It
more,
gets
right?
worse.
Yeah. Well, Cathy, thank you
Yeah.
so much one more time for joining. I really,
Yeah.
really appreciate it.
I enjoyed chatting
Is
with you.
there anything you'd like to kind of plug? Anywhere you'd like listeners to kind of go next from this interview?
Just keep coming and visiting, and then also remember that the part of our family is Hager Books.
Of course. Yes. Yes.
Which
That was not to be
was-
cut out. Yeah.
That was great. We were honored that the owner of that store approached us to make that part of our family. She said, "I think it would make a nice fit,"
Yeah.
and that's high praise.
Yeah.
Because that's another, just
That's a
very
great store.
Yeah, it's a quirky, wonderful,
Yeah.
and we just said, no, we're not going to do anything to it.
Just leave
Just
it be.
leave it.
Right?
So you go in there,
Yep.
and even after being in the business for being around for 60 years, we learned many things from them, and then we pushed them to try some things we did.
Right.
But it was definitely even never stop learning. Never figure you've got it all figured out, because you don't.
Yeah. I had a prof who always said, the day you stop learning is the day you die.
Well,
Yeah.
it's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a very happy adding to the family.
I'll make sure in the show notes we've got a full list of all the different stores so that listeners can go anywhere they
I mean,
like.
it's complicated because there's 3 different brands,
Right.
but we're all
it's all connected.
Yeah,
it's all books,
connected.
right?
Yeah, it's all books. So hopefully people come out and have some fun because there's lots of fun things happening that day.
And that's it. Now, before we go, 2 things I want to leave you with. First, if you've been putting off going into your local independent bookstore, this is your sign. Independent Bookstore Day is the excuse, but honestly, any day works. Walk in, talk to the bookseller, let yourself get way too overstimulated, and then leave with 6 books when you came in for 1. Second, of course, a huge thank you both to Cathy and to Christine for sitting down with me, to everybody at the Book Warehouse for hosting. Huge shout out to, the Black Bond Books umbrella of Black Bond, Book Warehouse, and Hager Books. We recorded both these interviews live at the Book Warehouse, and that is also where we have been recording ongoing monthly interviews with local authors. It has been an absolute joy. If you are new to the feed here, go check those interviews out. They are a ton of fun, and they are going to be continuing on into the foreseeable future. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend in your life who owns too many books and is proud of it. You know exactly who I'm talking about. Do us and them a favor and share the episode with them. As always, if you have any questions or want to share any stories with me, you can find me at FriendlessPod on Instagram and TikTok, or you can drop me a line at friendlesspod@gmail.com. But that's going to do it for me, so I'm going to wrap things up here. Thank you so much for listening one more time, and I hope I catch you back here again next week. But as always, I'm not going to worry about that right now, and neither should you, because that is then, and this is now. So for now, I'll just say I love you, and I wish you well. Fun and safety, sweet peas.